Hi everyone, so we have our announcement from Eugen Systems about the game they have been working on. It is indeed Wargame 4, sort of. Well, it's a spiritual successor to Wargame called Warno. It's not quite a direct successor because it's not exactly the same as the Wargame series. This is going to be the love child of Steel Division 2 and Wargame Red Dragon. So basically it won't be quite the same as either of them, and there will obviously be some changes from what we're used to in Red Dragon. There's obviously an official trailer out as well, which if you haven't seen already there will be a link to down in the description. However, let's get down to business. Warno as a name, I'm not really convinced by it. I understand the whole warning order thing, but yeah, it just doesn't sit quite right with me. But it is what it is. So getting down to the game itself. We will be starting off with just the USA and USSR when the game goes into early access. After which they will also add the French, UK and West Germany for NATO, and East Germany for the Warsaw Pact to go alongside the USSR. I suppose it basically feels like we're going back to early Wargame in the sense of European escalation. So one of the first big changes to mention from Wargame Red Dragon is that there will be no navy at all whatsoever in this new Warno game. They've got rid of that. Admittedly, it wasn't a very popular part of Red Dragon. I for one didn't like it very much. So I can understand why they've just pushed that to one side. It will, unlike Wargame Red Dragon, be getting mod support at some point. It is planned to be in there. It will also have a much improved AI, and let's be honest, the AI in Red Dragon was leaving a lot to be desired. There will also be general campaigns, which won't only be for single player, but will also be co-op, which is obviously a new thing for the Wargame series. Now I'm sure many of you have played Steel Division 2, I never have. However, these are some of the things which are being brought in from Steel Division. Firstly is obviously divisions themselves. Decks won't work quite the same, there will now be divisions a lot like what Steel Division has. There will be some form of off-map artillery at the start, however they're wondering whether they're going to leave that in or not. There will be various quality of life improvements, some of which I think are from SD and some of which aren't, so things like orders immediately in the deploy screen, the ability to give smart orders, range of engagement information, line of sight tools, things like that, so you're not sort of doing it blind anymore. There won't be any front line system, which was something that I think a few people have been concerned about. I think that works very well apparently in the World War II setting, but doesn't work quite so well for modern day, so I think they haven't left that system in. Of course, this is the same engine as SD2, and if they're allowing modding, then I'm sure someone could easily add that back if it was something people really wanted. So what other little bits of information do we have about the game? The first thing is there was a hint that we might be getting paratroopers, as the comment from the dev was you might be pleasantly surprised when it comes to paratroopers. So take that as you will. They also mentioned on Discord that buildings, when they become destroyed, will become ruins, unlike Wargame Red Dragon, and also that there won't be any custom loadouts initially for planes. However, it's something they're looking at possibly adding and seeing how viable it is in the future. The game is specifically being set in 1989 and all of the units will be from 1989. There will not be any special unicorn units or prototypes in this game. They're also saying there will be over 600 different military units featured in the game, though I imagine some of those will be variants of particular units rather than all unique ones. Rather than just a skirmish mode, we will actually be getting scripted missions as part of the campaigns, which is obviously something new to Wargame. And as with Wargame Red Dragon, we'll also be getting games up to 10v10. Now that's all the things we know, other things that have been mentioned on either Discord or indeed on the Steam page now. However, there's a lot of questions still around what we're going to see in this game. For example, will we be able to reinforce infantry? Will suppression be in? Will surrender be in? Will there be veterancy for units? And will transport stay on the map after they have dropped off troops? Also, the other question is, though they've mentioned that there will be off-map artillery initially, will planes also be an off-map call-in, or will you be able to control them as you did in Wargame Red Dragon? We aren't quite clear on that yet. Now let's move on to having a look at some of the screenshots they released. This first one is potentially an in-game screenshot. I assume it's not doctored up and made to look like one. You can see here that we have a zone as we do in Wargame Red Dragon, and 2 other zones in the background there that haven't been taken. I'm just going to have a look at the UI first. I know that people aren't overly impressed with it, and that's fair enough. It's a little bit different. So up in the top left corner we have deck and groups. Groups are groups of units which can be predetermined. So for example, when you are deploying at the start of a match, you can put down a group of units that covers a particular set. For example, you might have a group set up that is for pushing a main battle tank across a front line. So a mortar for smoking, a main battle tank, some anti-air, some recon, some anti-tank infantry, something like that. You know, I'm thinking of Fedor or Foxtrot in Mudfight. The next icon along there is this star and 10,000 points. I have no idea what that is, perhaps some kind of victory points, or how many units you need to destroy's worth of points. I'm honestly not sure. I think it's been said that this can sometimes relate to single player campaigns and capturing points. Then we have a little circle with 47 next to it. It's been suggested that this could be income by Razman, I believe, but I'm honestly not sure. Then we have what looks like capture points, I assume 2, 0, 15. Is this that there are 15 on the map, you've captured 2 of them, your enemy have captured 0 at this point in time? Because there's 2 definitely there that aren't capped. You can see that you've got 1. You can't really see on the minimap if there are any others which are capped or not, so it's difficult to say at this stage. Then we have, I don't know, what could possibly be something to do with campaign or map control points. I'm honestly not sure. Is this something similar in Steel Division 2? Does anyone have any idea? Let me know down in the comments. Then you have your clock at the far side telling you how much game time there's been, or how much time is left, I'm not sure. And then obviously your speed. This must be a replay, I assume, otherwise it's single player and you can speed it up and down. Then under that you have your air wing. This is all your aircraft. Now the question is, are these units that you can bring in and control on the map like you could in Wargame Red Dragon, or are these call-ins that just do their own thing when you call them in? That's something we're not sure about. I can't actually see what's really selected on the map there. I can see various arrows, and one of them does appear to be coming from that ATGM plane, the A-10, and going towards an enemy vehicle. However, I don't know if that's a pre-calling condition or if the person is indeed controlling that and has right-clicked on that tank to destroy it. I assume that is the T-80B up there at the top. You obviously can see a couple of other planes there. We've got the F-16A, the F-15C and the F-4E. Below that we can see our minimap, which isn't too exciting. I don't actually like the fact that it's all blue like that. I would rather have it coloured. And then under that we can see a few different settings. We can see a help, attack, defend, need support, enemy spotted and custom. This is our flags, as it were, or markers that we can put on the map for our allies. And then down at the very bottom we have a few symbols. I'm not sure what that first one is. It looks like some kind of menu symbol. Then we have something which is arrow. Is that a move command? I'm not sure. Then we have something which looks like an eye. So is that line of sight or something like that? Then we have what appears to be a chat window. And then finally at the very end, an options or settings. Then obviously we have the middle of the screen itself. And there's a few different things going on here. One of the things I think is quite interesting is I see there are a few units that have a little circle above them, but I'm not actually sure what that is. Does that relate to reload, or does it relate to acquiring a target? I'm not entirely sure. I noticed that 2 of the ATGM A-10 planes have it, so could that be that they're getting ready to fire? Other than that, we can obviously see various units which we will be familiar with from Wargame. So we can see Motostrelki there in the background for the USSR, we can see the T-80B, we can see another little unit marked in an area between the Motostrelki and the tanks, but not actually what it is, but it looks like some kind of transport vehicle, a little APC in terms of its outline. Perhaps that's something that we can almost see but not quite see with our recon. The reason I say this is because, as you can see from our side of the map, as we are the blue for, you can notice that our scouts and our infantry that are in tree lines, or indeed the Abrams that's on the left side of the map there, all have this same dotted outline, which suggests that they are hidden and in cover. And then obviously between all these units we have the mech rifles in the buildings in the town. And these guys have a similar dotted line around them, but these are bigger little lines. I suspect this is that they're hidden but in a building, and it's just to differentiate how they're hidden. So rather than just flashing in and out, there's something else there to indicate what kind of position they're in. And this is in sharp contrast to the other M1 Abrams, which are out and about and just have the little corner pieces rather than a full square around them. So that's, I think, to give us some indication over what they're doing at that particular time and their stealth status. As I sit here and look at this more intently, I notice that it actually looks like the ATGMs may have already fired from the A10s once, and perhaps this is them reloading to take a second shot. So that little bar at the top, maybe that is indeed the loading or reloading of a weapon system. Interestingly, you will notice that some of the units have a little bar under them, a white one, such as our Abrams on the right there, the enemy Motostrelki, and the enemy T-80B, I assume, up at the back there. I wonder if this relates to a status effect, or if this is some kind of health bar. The reason I wonder if it's a status effect is I do notice the Motostrelki both say they are stunned for a particular amount of time. However, those times are very close to each other, so I don't think the bars would be that different. Perhaps this is an indication of their health. The other reason I wonder about that is because you can see our mech rifles, which are at the far right side, actually have a tiny little bit of that white bar left. Does that mean that they're almost dead? You can see that they are reloading their weapons as well, if that circle is indeed reloading. There are also some interesting symbols on some of the units which we don't get in Wargame Red Dragon, which appears to signify the type of weaponry they carry. For example, we can see the A10s have what looks like an anti-tank launcher, the Apaches have a similar anti-tank launcher next to the helicopter symbol, and also we can see that the M91A1 ITV, which is apparently carrying troops, I think, or the troops are already in the forest, that also has an anti-tank symbol, as do the ones behind it. The other thing to note here is the repair symbol, which is next to the Abrams tank in the center of the map there. It does have a repair symbol next to it. Now, the other Abrams doesn't have any repair symbol, however, it also doesn't have a bar under it. So I wonder if that bar is indeed the health of the unit. Now, this is something that we didn't get in Wargame, other than if we clicked on the unit you could see its health pip points. Perhaps this is just their way of making it a little bit easier to see if the unit has taken damage. Of course, that's just all speculation at this stage. It's very difficult to say without more information, but I'm sure that will be forthcoming from UGen themselves. Let's move on, as I can't really think of much more to say about that one, and have a look at this lovely AH-1F Cobra in the hangar. So we can see here at the top we can filter by alliance, NATO or the Warsaw Pact, or indeed filter by nation. We can then see we have all logistics, infantry support, tank, recon vehicle, helicopters and air, basically exactly the same as we have in the Wargame series. Further down there on the left hand side we can also see that you can filter by role. That's something that is a drop down in Wargame, but here it's a button click. And also below that you can see filter by value, however I'm not sure what that relates to. Currently it's just a green coloured half box. And also filter by name at the very bottom. In the bottom centre of the screen you can see the battle groups tab, but I don't know what that relates to, as I've not played Steel Division 2, but I understand that's where that's coming from. But we can have a look at the unit tab itself, the unit information. Very similar to what we get in Wargame Red Dragon. We get the unit category of anti-tank. We get its unit value, which is B value. I'm not sure what that means. I know that in Steel Division 2 there is a value associated with units, but again I've not played it, so I wouldn't like to delve into that too much. I need to do a bit of reading on that. Then we get our armor, which says less than 1 on the front, side, rear and top. I'm not quite sure what less than 1 means. That's not very specific. I assume there is a specific value given really, but they obviously don't want to have 0.5 listed there. Then beneath that we get our weapon systems. We can see there is a TOW, a Gatling gun and Hydra 70mm rockets. Now things are laid out a little bit differently to where they are in Wargame, but it's equally as confusing I think, and I suspect there's a lot of hidden stats here such as how damage is actually applied. The toe for example has a penetration of 20, but its damage is 1 and its suppression is 1, which is a little bit confusing. Does that mean that it does 20 damage if it penetrates, or just 1 damage if it penetrates? I'm assuming, and this is a big assumption, that it will penetrate up to 20 armor and then do 1 damage, or if you have less armor than 20, it will do more damage, but it's very difficult to say for certain. The Gatling gun has just 1 penetration, has a range to ground targets of 1060 meters, a range to helicopters of 1767 meters, and then a range to aircraft of 2473 meters, which seems like a really weird amount. I don't know why that is, I'm a little bit confused. I'm also confused as to why they are in red rather than green. I think it would be easy to say that the colour relates to how effective it is at a job. For example, the toe penetration of 20, the bar is about halfway, whereas the accuracy of 60 is well over halfway and thus is green. And that is the same for the helicopter in terms of the Gatling gun range to the helicopter. It's over 50% and therefore is green, whereas ground targets and aircraft are red because they haven't even got part of the bar full. So that must somehow relate to how efficient it is at that particular thing. Moving down, for example, the damage of the Gatling gun 0.5 and suppression 13. That again seems to be very low compared to what it potentially could be. Thus it is red, which is weird because then you've got the toe which is blue and is 1 and 1 and has a full bar. I'm a bit baffled by that. I don't fully grasp it. I'm wondering if someone who knows more about both games could answer that question in the comments for me. Then obviously you've got the accuracy of 18%, which yes, that probably should be red, and the rate of fire is 827, which I'm not sure why that's red because that seems pretty fast to me. Moving on anyway to the Hydra rockets, penetration of 1, which again that's got a blue 1 and the bar is full, so I'm not sure about that. Ground target range 2120 meters, well okay. And then damage 1.75, suppression 46, accuracy 19, rate of fire 120, and that's full and is again blue. Little bit confused. Okay, very confused. I assume a full bar means that it's blue, so it's perfect, but really not sure. Then we get our vehicle or section characteristics. So its max damage is 10. Does that mean the max damage it can take, I assume? Then we get the autonomy is 27 kilometers for the fuel, which is 1000 liters. We get speed of 252 kilometers per hour. Its optics are mediocre, its stealth is bad, and its road speed is obviously 0. All of that kind of makes sense, very similar to what we get in Wargame. And that's about all I can tell you about that particular screenshot, so let's move on to the final screenshot which shows something in the hangar. Now the main thing I want to mention here is the fact that this really reinforces the whole division thing. You can see down there at the bottom that we have our new battle group, we have our amount of activation points that were allowed for this particular deck, the same as we get in Wargame Red Dragon, and then we have our 3rd armored division. So this is the fact that we have to choose a division for our deck to make them more specialized. So unlike Wargame Red Dragon, we won't be able to select a very generic deck. We'll have to make a division deck, and therefore we'll be reliant on other people for other types of vehicles or large numbers of those vehicles, I expect. However, again, it's a bit of speculation because we don't know exactly what those divisions are going to allow. Those of you who have played SD2 may have more of an idea, but I don't know how much they're going to change that up in Warno compared to SD2. So other than saying we got some very pretty screenshots and that the landscape looks very nice and the buildings all look very nice, there's not really much else to say that you can't see for yourself at the moment. I actually need to go and do some research on what SD2 was like, and maybe have a look at some videos on that so I understand this whole division system. The last thing I'd probably say is that this game is coming out in early access on January 20th on Steam, and the page is now live, but you won't be able to order it until the 20th of January. As far as I know, they haven't mentioned anything about pricing of early access yet, but are promising that it will be getting very regular updates. So currently all you can really do is discuss it and, add it to your wish list. At least now we actually know that Warno exists and that it is sort of a spiritual successor to Wargame, and that it is coming fairly soon to early access. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Please do like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for any more information I get on Warno, or indeed any other interesting titles that come up.